Hi, my name is Kaylee and welcome to Dog-Eared Page. I'm here today with my first ever video, which is the new To Booktube book tag. This tag started at Between Chapters, which I will link below. Let's get into it. Number 1 asks, where are you joining us from? I'm from the suburbs of Chicago. Been here most of my life. Number 2 is, how old are you? I just turned 30 in February. Number 3 is, why did you join BookTube? I joined BookTube because I've been a reader my whole life. I started watching BookTube videos about 2 years ago. Got really into it within the last year, watching some of my favorite channels. Got a lot of my book recommendations through them and decided I read a lot and I like to talk about books, and the only person that has to sit and listen to me talk about books is my husband, so why not start a channel and talk about it with everybody. Number 4 is, what is the meaning behind my channel name, which again is Dog-Eared Page, and it actually comes from a band I really liked in high school called The Matches, and they had a song called Dog-Eared Page. So when I wanted to make a Bookstagram account, it was the first thing that came to mind, and I made it, and now it's evolving into a channel. Number 5 is, what kind of books do you read and want to talk about here? My top is probably going to be YA fantasy / adult fantasy. I also read contemporary, both YA and adult contemporary, thrillers, horror, graphic novels. I really read a whole lot. I'm not a big fan of historical or classic fiction, so you won't see that much here, but fantasy is probably my top, and you'll see a lot of that here. Number 6, who are some of your favorite authors? My number 1 is going to be Neil Gaiman. Anything he puts out I tend to love. American Gods is in one of my top 3 easily. Along with that, even though it was really only one novel that she put out, Harper Lee, To Kill a Mockingbird, so I always have to say her. And recently got into Stephen King the past 2 years, after years of saying that I wouldn't read him because everybody reads him. It turns out there's a reason everybody reads him. So Stephen King, and amongst contemporaries I'd have to go with Jeff Sentner. The Serpent King was just too phenomenal to not list him. Other than that, I really just read a little bit of everybody. Number 7. What is the last book that I read? I read 2 thrillers recently. On an ebook, I read The Woman in the Window by A.J. Finn, an adult thriller. It's really good. I've seen mixed reviews, but for the most part I've seen good reviews, and I'm one of the ones that would give it a good review. I 4-starred it, so that was really good. And I also read One of Us is Lying by Karen McManus, which is a YA thriller, and you may have seen on BookTube around, but it is really good. I didn't know what to think. It was my first YA thriller going in, so yeah, check it out. It was really good. Question number 8, what are you currently reading? Right now, I usually have 2 to 4 books going at a time. Physically, I have The Raven Boys, part of the Raven Cycle, just the first one. I started listening to an audiobook, and while it was a really, really good audiobook, I tend to get distracted. I have a little bit of ADHD and can't focus for very long. So I really liked it and decided to go get the actual physical copy so I can invest time into it. So that's what I'm reading physically. I also am listening in an audiobook to Heartless by Marissa Meyer. And an ebook I'm reading, Sleeping Giants by Sylvain Neuvel, I want to say is how you pronounce it. So those are the 3 I'm currently reading. Number 9 is, what do I use for bookmarks? Well, I lose bookmarks like you wouldn't believe, so I don't really use traditional bookmarks that you buy because they just get lost. So my 2 main sources of bookmarks are to put the page number I'm reading in a physical book on Goodreads. That way I can just look it up if I forget where I'm at. And the other thing is I just pick whatever is up around me, receipts, pieces of paper, whatever, and I use it in the book that I'm reading. And I have like a really weird quirk where if I use, say, a receipt from Target in a book, I have to continue to use that receipt as a bookmark until the book is done, and then I can throw it out and do it all again the next time. I don't know what happens if I use a different bookmark for that book, but it's just one of those weird things that I do. Number 10 is show us your current TBR. So here are a few of the books on my current TBR. It's really long, and I've got a bunch of holds through Overdrive from my library that I'm not even going to mention in this because it would be like an epically long video. But here are some that I buy. Now, I don't buy a whole lot of books because books are expensive. So when I get them, I tend to put them off in favor of library books because libraries have a deadline, and thus they sit on my shelf forever. So here are the 4 books that are on my TBR that I keep meaning to get to. We've got The Wicked Deep by Shay Earnshaw. We've got The Hazelwood by Melissa Albert. We've got Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. And we've got The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. So I have had these for quite some time, and they're all very hyped books, and I can't wait to get to them, but I just keep putting them off. Number 11 is a multifaceted question. So the first part is, do I prefer hardcover or paperback books? When it comes to owning a book, I like hardcovers. As you saw in my TBR pile, all 4 of those books were hardcover. I don't exclusively buy hardcovers, but if I can get them for a decent price and it's something I'm really excited for, I'll get it in hardcover. They're harder to move, and because I rent, I have to keep that in mind, so I try not to buy too many because they're heavy. Other than that, though, paperback is easier to hold, and I'm a mom of 3 children, so holding a book can get really tiresome when you're holding a kid in on the other arm. Paperback wins there. Overall, though, we go hardback. Ebooks or physical books. I read a lot more ebooks because it's easier to hold my phone and read a book when I'm holding a baby or just really out and about, which happens a lot. So I get through more ebooks, but nothing beats holding a phone, but nothing beats holding a book in your hands, obviously. And then the last part of this question is owning books or borrowing books. I borrow a lot more books than I buy, so you're going to see a lot more library hauls than you'll see book hauls, simply because I try to stick to 1 to 2 books purchased a month, probably even less than that, though I will have a huge haul this month because of sales and stuff like that. We'll see. Number 12 is what book or series got me into reading? And now this question's a little hard to dive into, mostly because I've been reading my whole life, so I'm going to go through stages, which when I was a younger kid, like 7, 8, 9, I read Animorphs. I read R.L. Stine from Goosebumps to Fear Street. I loved Fear Street. My lucky number is 17 because most characters in Fear Street were 17. So my whole life has been, changed by that series. Then into my preteen years, which is when Harry Potter first launched, and of course I'm a Potterhead. Who isn't? So that series obviously brought me into my adulthood, and around early 20s I kind of took a backseat with reading in college and working, and it took a while to get back into it. I was reading maybe a couple books a year, and it wasn't until about 3 years ago that I picked up, due to someone's recommendation, the first book in the Lunar Chronicles by Marissa Meyer, Cinder for those of you that don't know, and it reopened my love for YA fantasy, which got me reading that again. And once you get into YA fantasy, you kind of have to commit to several books typically, and here we are 3 years later, and I'm reading 50 to 100 books a year, which is small for some, large for others. I'm a lot more stoked on having that amount than the 5 I was reading. Number 13, how did you discover BookTube? I discovered BookTube through Chelsea at Chelsea Darling Reads. I'll link her below as well. But if you know if you're watching my video, you probably already know her. But yeah, Chelsea and I became friends on Instagram at some point about 2 years ago, I guess, maybe a little bit more. I'm not really sure how it all started, but I started watching her channel. She was the first booktuber I watched, and from there I found other booktubers that I really enjoyed watching, and I really fell in love with the community and the idea of it, and so here we are. Number 14, what challenges do I think that I'll face in my own channel? That's a really easy one. I'm a mom of 3 kids, ages 5 down to 4 months. So time, consistency, being able to film a video without a lot of background noise, because typically my older kids who are not home right now are causing a lot of background noise at best. And I have a 4-month-old who needs mom all the time and is going through a very quiet nap right now, I think. So it's going to be the fact that I have to work around the schedules of several people, not just myself. And finally, number 15, link up. Where else can you find me? I'm on Instagram at dog.eared.page, and I'm on Twitter. My handle is my name, Kaylee Hocus. I will put the links down below, because those are probably hard to remember, but those are where you'll find me. Other than that, thank you for watching this video. Thank you for being here, and I will see you in the next video.